Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so today we're reading from the Bhagavad Gita. And today you will choose the verse, not me. So there are 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. So anyone want to shout out a number between 1 and 18?
6.
6. Who said that? Okay, 6. Okay, good. 6 it is. Okay. And anyone want to say out a number between 1 and 47? 6. Okay. I heard 6 first, so let's go with that. So we are reading today from the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and we're reading about text number 6. Let's see, maybe it's relevant to you. Let's see what Krishna says. So this is chapter number 6, text number 6. Do you want to try and say the Sanskrit after me? Oh, you just want me to speak? Okay. Alright, I'm just going to say it myself. This is the Sanskrit. Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jita anatmanastu satrutve vartetatmeva satruvat. Okay, I'll tell you the English now. Krishna says to Arjuna, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. Put your hands up if you sometimes have problems with your mind. Okay, looks like Krishna is speaking to all of us today. Thank you. 6. Okay, this is the purport. So what Srila Prabhupada, our teacher, has done is that for every single verse of the Bhagavad Gita, he's given a commentary. And the commentary helps us to understand how this relates to our life today. Of course, you may read this verse and say, no commentary needed. I understand. But it's good also to hear his illumination. So this is what he said. The purpose of practicing the eightfold yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go bit by bit because I'm going to explain some things here. The eightfold yoga practice is an ancient practice of yoga which originated with someone called Patanjali. Have you ever heard of Patanjali? Yes. Patanjali wrote a book called the Yoga Sutras. And in the Yoga Sutras, he outlined something called Ashtanga Yoga. Anga means limbs. And Asta means 8. So it literally means the 8-limbed yoga. Now today, if you go to a place and they say, we're going to teach you yoga. By the way, we're going to start yoga classes here. More about that later. But nowadays, if you go into the world and they tell you they're going to teach you yoga, what kind of yoga do they teach you? Hatha yoga. And what is Hatha yoga? Hatha yoga is basically asanas, which means postures, and pranayam, which means breathing. So these two things, asanas and pranayam, they are 2 steps of Ashtanga yoga. The first step of Ashtanga yoga is yama, things you should not do. Then the next step of Ashtanga yoga is niyama, things you should do. Then the third step of Ashtanga yoga is asanas, postures. The fourth step of Ashtanga is pranayam, breathing. The fifth step of Ashtanga yoga is pratyahara, which means to take your mind and senses away from things that are not good for you. Then the sixth step of Ashtanga is called dharana, placing your mind in those things which are positive contemplation. And then the seventh stage is known as dhyana, which means focusing now on those things. Dhyan means meditation. And then the 8th step is samadhi, where one enters a state of complete mental and spiritual tranquility. So what most people know about in terms of yoga today is just 2 isolated steps of a bigger process, which is not just meant to help. If the mind is controlled, this is quite loud, I think. Yeah, we'll take some more. You have to practice mind control. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of a living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the direction of the personality of Godhead, who is situated in the heart of everyone as the Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Here is a mobile phone. If the battery is old, if the screen is broken, if the cover is damaged, can you still use the phone?
No.
Really? Many people have broken screens, right? Many people's battery is like low, but they just keep charging it. Many people's covers are broken, but you carry on using the phone. Many people just carry on like that. But if the operating system crashes, can you do anything with the phone? So what is more important part of the phone, the hardware or the software?
Software.
In the world today, most people put emphasis on the hardware of their identity, but they don't put emphasis on the software of their identity. The Bhagavad Gita explains that each of us are a spiritual being, but in order to function in this world, we're given software and we're given hardware. What's the hardware? The body. The body that you see every day when you wake up in the morning and you look at the mirror, that's the body you've been given. That's your hardware. Like it or not, you have to live with it. The software of our body is our mind, our intelligence, and our subtle capabilities. But if you look at the world today, on every corner there is a gym, isn't it? A gym to train the body. How many of you are members of a gym? Now no one's put their hand up. We know some of you are. Many people join a gym because you got to take care of your body. Health is good. Physical health is important. But how many people are taking care of their software, their mind? How many mind gyms have you seen? Have you ever seen a mind gym? Well, The Hare Krishna temple is a mind gym. And there's no membership fee, you can just come. And we open at 4:30 in the morning. So you're welcome to come. And actually it's really, really important. Because if you have a beautiful body, you have beautiful possessions, you have beautiful arrangements in your life, even if you have beautiful people around you, but you don't have a beautiful mind, then everything is practically useless. Because Krishna says, if you haven't conquered or made friends with your mind will be the constant enemy. We think the enemy is outside of us. The enemy is the governments. The enemy is the taxman. The enemy is, dare I say it, my husband or wife. The enemy is my boss. The enemy is all the bad fortune that I've come across. We think everything else is our enemy. But actually, the enemy is closer than you think. There's one great yogi in the Bhagavatam, and after a lifetime of living, he had an amazing realization. And you know what his realization was? He said, let me see if I can remember it. He said, I was thinking in my whole life about what was the source of my suffering. Because in our life we suffer so much. So he was thinking, what is the source of my suffering? And this was his realization. God, it's just escaped my mind. It was just in my mind and then I lost it. Nayam jano me sukadu kahetur na devatatma graha karma kalaha Manaparam karamana mananti samsara chakram parivartayadyat. Amazing realization. He said, I was reflecting on my life and I was thinking, why did I suffer so much? And then he said, Nayam jano me. I used to think that other people were the cause of my suffering. I was wrong. Na devatatma. Later on I used to think that maybe the gods were the cause of my suffering. They're conspiring against me. I was wrong. Na graha. Later on I thought maybe the planets were the cause of my suffering. Have you done your astrology? Very bad. There's a moon. And the moon is bad influence, bad luck. He said, I used to think it was the planets. I was wrong. Karma. Later on I thought maybe karma was the cause of my suffering. I was wrong. Really? Karma isn't the cause of your suffering? No. Kala. Later on I used to think that maybe time is the cause of my suffering because in time everyone suffers. I was wrong. He said, in the end I realized, Param Karanam, there's only one cause of suffering. And what is that cause of suffering? Mana, my own mind. Because everything can be great or everything can be terrible, but if your mind is uncontrolled, it will all be suffering. And everything can be great or everything can be terrible, but if you've made friends with your mind, everything is beautiful. So therefore, the software of our existence is our mind. And most people, number one, they don't know what the mind is. Number two, they don't know how to control their mind. And number three, they don't know how to then positively absorb their mind in something else. And therefore, you know that the World Health Organization now says that the biggest problem in health in the next 10 years won't be cancer. It won't be heart problems. It won't be any kind of viruses in the world. But you know what the biggest problem in the world is going to be? Mental health. 1 in 3 people in America have a psychiatrist. In UK, I don't know what it's like in Brussels, but in UK, 1 person commits suicide every 70 minutes. That's the reality. Why? Because mental health, the mind has become the greatest enemy, and therefore one no longer sees any hope, one no longer sees any future. But if we're all honest, then all of us have battles with the mind. We think depression is what happens to people, out there who have some kind of on medication or something. Actually, everyone feels some elements of this practically every single day, because the mind is always constantly troubling us. Therefore, the entire practice of yoga is meant to remold your own mind. When the mind is uncontrolled, then what you'll find is you always have negative thoughts. Yeah? Well, let's say like this. There is a friend and there is an enemy. Tell me some things which are qualities of an enemy. Can you shout out some things? Qualities of an enemy. Yes.
You don't drink alcohol, but they want you to drink alcohol.
Okay, so the enemy is always telling you to do the wrong things. Yes. What else?
Anger. That's one thing that...
The enemy is always angry and not looking out for your best well-being. What else? Doubts. An enemy puts doubts in you. It puts doubts in yourself. Limits you.
Enemy wants you to take the wrong decisions in life.
Enemy wants you to take the wrong decisions so that you become unsuccessful.
Jealous.
An enemy is jealous when they can't stand to see you succeed. An enemy is always distracting you from what will be good for you, from what will be progressive and rewarding. Can you now begin to see what a mind that's uncontrolled is like? Do you sometimes feel like that's what your mind is like? The mind is always, you don't know what the mind is going to come up with next. In the ancient scriptures, the mind is described like this. Markatasya surapanam tatra vrishchikadam sanam tanmadhye bhutasam charo yadva tadva bhavishyati. You want to know what the mind is like? Have you ever seen a monkey? Very erratic, isn't it? A monkey, you don't know what they're going to do next. But markatasya surapanam. Have you ever seen a drunk monkey? Well, then the restlessness goes to another degree. But tatra vrishchika. Have you ever seen a drunk monkey that has been bitten by a scorpion? That kind of monkey is even more agitated. But not just that. Tanmadhye bhuta samcharo. Have you ever seen a drunk monkey that's been bitten by a scorpion and haunted by a ghost? Yadva tadva bhavishyati. Who is going to be able to predict what such a monkey is going to do next? Welcome to the mind. The ancient scriptures say this is the mind. So sometimes the mind comes up with all these ideas. Have you noticed? Sometimes the mind comes up with the craziest things. And therefore, our mind needs attention. Our mind has become infected. Our mind basically has a virus. You know, like when you have a virus on the computer, everything slows down, nothing works properly. Our mind has a virus. Do you think it's really possible to change the way your mind functions? Is it hard? It's not hard? You think it's easy? It's not easy and it's not hard. Which one is it? It's hard.